Hello and welcome back to the A Perfect Union podcast, one of our Human Up podcasts that you can find at humanup.tv. Also, you can check out my other website, unumbeing.com, for a lot of the latest offerings that we're providing. My father, Ashok Gangadeen, is with us as usual for this A Perfect Union podcast, and his website is awakeningmind.org. And wow, you could spend a lifetime on his website with the amount of amazing materials that are quite supplemental to what we're going to be talking about here in our continuing Perfect Union podcast, and also on Human Up TV and all these places. In other words, guys, we have a lot of resources for you, tons of resources. The latest of which is 1776 Now. We have just released the full 9 episodes plus a number of supplemental videos to that as well, and music. You can find those on the websites. They are free and available to watch at your leisure, though we do feel that is a very urgent matter that the people, not just of the United States, but of the planet, especially the United States, as at the time of this recording, we are just a couple weeks from the election. And so it's a lot of tension building, and there's a lot of worry, a sort of mounting fear and concern because of what's happening on that stage. That's some of the impetus behind us doing this now and offering this to you, A Perfect Union podcast. This episode, because that first one went by so fast, we're going to do part 2 of the same theme, the Promised Land. The land of the free. And what does that mean? And how do we realize it, make it real? How do we embody that now? And there really is a science to it. There really is a profound, deep logic that we all have access to. It's not a complicated thing. It's actually profoundly simple. It's so simple, in fact, that we have to get less complicated in order to understand it. So this is about hanging out together and getting that literacy, getting that deeper understanding, activating that understanding, which you already have. You have it in you. It's not an acquired informational knowledge where you have to, learn it in that sense, like accumulate information. This is different. It's more of an activation to give you active vision, which is what we playfully and lovingly refer to as the most powerful activism. Is active vision, which is what? Is getting awake, becoming awake. Awake to what? Awake to reality, awake to reason, deeper reason. And we've got a society full of rationales, narratives, ideologies, ideas, and opinions, and all different takes. And truth, where's the truth? There is no truth. Oh, okay, well then I guess it's just every man for himself, every woman for herself, every person for themselves. And here we are, right? So we want you to join us in this space wherever you are. You're driving in your car, you're lying in your bed, wherever you're doing it. You're cleaning the dishes. You're with us in the Promised Land, the land of the free, hanging out and joining us in the joy of that and the celebration of that and the awesome responsibility of that. We are beginning this conversation. We're just going to have fun and wing it. Dad, I took about 16 minutes last time, so I want you. I'm gonna hand the mic quickly before I go too long.
I love how you're on a roll now. That's beautiful, and this is our conversation, And we sometimes joke and say this when let's have a heart to heart when no one's listening, right? And that's the spirit of this. We really want to be conversational and speak from the heart. With each other and with anyone who is going to join us. Nathan, you've opened up some amazing themes in terms of land of the free. You've also said rightly that the American holy experiment, when you call it something holy, it's not holy because we call it holy, it's holy because it's holy. And holy means back to the infinite, the source, across a planet, right? The infinite presence. One of the things that people perhaps don't really sufficiently pause to understand is that reality, we all say reality is around us, in us, through us. No one questions that reality, the world, is around, existence is around us. But if we stop to really explore that, which is the history of philosophy, enlightenment, wisdom, that reality can't be bounded. It's boundless because it's silly. It's almost childish to try and draw a boundary around it, because then what's beyond the boundary? So it's boundless. You can't make it finite and definite and finitize it and cage it. All of those attempts are futile and silly. And when you realize that reality is boundless, then you're opening to the realization it's infinite. It's transfinite. So boundless is transfinite, and if it's infinite, right, you have to begin to open up to a whole new way of encountering presence. We have to realize that the infinite is infinitely here, now, already. So what you're calling the land of the free or the promised land is not something distant. And one of your beautiful songs, I hope we could share it sometime, is we're already here. We're already here. So being is here. And whatever name we use for being, whatever, across the planet we hear in the beginning is a word, or Om, or Tao. The Tao that is named in everyday language is not the Tao, or Yahweh, or Allah, or Buddha Dharma, the law. We have all of these amazing explorations through history, through the centuries, right? So that's the holy experiment. The holy experiment is a call of the infinite. It's an evolutionary call that all we humans, if we call it Homo sapiens, sapiens means the species of wisdom. Wisdom is the call of the infinite, of Sophia, to use a Greek. Logos, Sophia. Sophia is the feminine energy embodiment of wisdom. Philosophy, philosophia, is a lover of Sophia. So philosophy and wisdom, the wisdom species,
science,
is the holy.
Scientia. Science comes from the root scientia, which is
right.
to know, to be in touch with reality. So even science is holy.
Absolutely.
And we can slip into the mistake of, go ahead.
No, this is a conversation, and I really would like to dialogue, but I'm just echoing and resonating now through the wonderful, rich themes that we have. It's going to take us many, many episodes of just even the promised land to understand that is a call to all the planet. Because Earth, as we say, the source Earth, not the ego-based Earth, but the Earth, the sacred Earth, is the presence of being, the presence of reality. Of if you want to use God talk, Earth is godly, is Godding, it's logosing, it's Sophia-ing, right? It's oming, it's Taoing. All of these amazing Allah, right? Once you call out to the infinite and recognize that being is infinite, and you think it through for a moment, you realize, wow, the infinite is here. It's here. It's always here. It's already in us, around us, through us, in every breath, in every moment. We cannot step away from the infinite. And if we could only stop to process that, we realize, OMG, the promised land is already here. That's a promised land. It's a space of presence.
That's right. In this conversation we were having this morning, you said that very thing. The promised land is not a physical location. In fact, I even wrote it down over here on my notes. And I loved that. The promised land is not a physical location. What do you mean? The land implies a place, right? So we tend to conflate a place with the promised land. And so I'd like you to speak to that, if you would, to help people understand, why is the promised land not a place? Doesn't it have to be a place in order to be experienced? How are we going to be there if we can't point to it?
Well, that's right, but it's ambiguous because our wisdom teachers and enlightenment teachers and scriptures have all suggested that we humans, when we really realize who we are, that's a question. What does it mean to be a human? A Homo sapien, that we're LogoSapiens, we're from the Logos. I'm using the Greek word. We could use any word of these great infinite words, but let's use it because it really resonates with reason, the light of reason, the infinite light of reason. That's the Logos from the Greek, which is Sophia, the embodiment of that. And we're children of that light, where we come from that light. And that is really the journey of evolution. And so the question of land, all of these great traditions, Socrates would suggest, Plato, Socrates, that we humans are living in a cave where we're still in ignorance. We haven't turned on the lights of reason. And we need to leave the cave, which is a metaphor for coming into what? Into the light of reason when we become human. What's that? The space, right? The rational space. It's not a physical space. So if we just buy into our senses at face value and on our everyday common sense views across the planet, everyday culture, we're very physicalistically, oriented to what I can see and touch. Reality
Exactly, yeah.
It's tangible. It's what I can see and touch. But our great teachers say, no, that's a stage, because if we could really, because what we see and hear and touch with our bodies, we're using our mind, we're using our lens. And if you can open up that lens and come into the light, our eyes will give us a whole deeper vision of the sacred. We will be able to hear the sounds of the source. The land that awaits us is eclipsed. So we can be on the earth, the ego-based thought of the earth, right, as objectified. But there's an earth, a sacred earth, a Gaia, a living, which is the presence of the Logos. That's the land. And the promised land is, who promised it? Who promised it to us? Well, that's a metaphor that the fact that we are humans and are on a journey of evolving to who we are, in that journey, there is an end game, so to speak, of arriving home, coming to Om, coming into the Om. And even Om land is a good point, because in yoga, when we use Om as a name, it's infinite space, but it's infinite presence. So once we remember that the infinite is already here, we couldn't be without it. That's the point.
That's Om,
the
Sweet
source
Om.
of all. That's Om, Sweet Om. That's home. That's a Christ space, right? So Jesus is calling us to leave the space of alienation from who we are, from sin. Sin is a word that can be misunderstood in many ways, but in deep philosophy, it is the condition of being cut off from who we are and from our higher version of ourselves in the divine space, in the sacred space. So it's a call to sacred space, to Buddha land. If we come to Buddha land, if we go to the burning bush where Moses went into that space, that holy space, and to take off your sandals, you're on holy ground, and to bring these laws of God to the people, and to call the people to understand how to follow the moral law, right? The law of Logos, which is the law of the land, human beings. So your point is very well taken, that land, like the twin earth, the ego-based earth of physicality, but the invisible earth that's all around us, we haven't discovered Earth yet. We haven't arrived in America yet. Who discovered America, Nath? We can discover the land when Columbus, allegedly in that story, and there are many different ways of looking at this, because it was already discovered by the indigenous first people. But whoever discovered America, have we, as a people, in the 21st century, discovered America, right? That promised land. That is already here. So the location is important. The physicality is not unimportant, but don't think that is the whole story of rising to the land of consciousness, awakened people. That's the polis, the community. That's America, the polis, the Greek word for the nation. One nation, under source, indivisible. That is the unum, perfect unum, right? The title that we're following in our podcast. Right, that's America here now already, waiting for us. How do we find it, Nath? Take that. I want to throw that to you. How do people find our way to the promised land?
Oh, yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I myself am just realizing. Okay, I was born in the USA, homegrown, outside of Philadelphia. And just like anyone else. Probably middle of the road in terms of my experience and economic experience, all that kind of stuff. A nice reach in terms of my sense of society, and exposed to standard public school and learning. Having to from the time I'm having a memory right now of being in first grade. And having to stand up and put your hand over your heart and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And we learned the words by rote as kids. I didn't know what any of the words meant, but I'll tell you what I did know. One kid didn't stand up, and he got in such big trouble, and all I knew is, I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And that was why I said the Pledge of Allegiance. And for years I did that. And you know what, guys? I only recently understand what it means. So in a way, I've only recently come to America, That's how I would respond to that. What does it mean to be in America? Because your body can be located in somewhere in the United States borders, and that could mean, yeah, I'm in America. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're living in the land of the free. You have to be free to be in the land of the free.
That's right.
So what if you're not free? And one of the songs we bring in as a cover performance in 1776 Now is Bob Marley's redemption songs. And the reason we brought that song in was because of this very point. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Wow, if we really take that seriously, that says everything. What's the number one issue here? Let's emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, which is being slavery. If you're mentally, so the word slavery is obviously strong, and maybe some of you balk at us using that word because it's been such a literal imposition on a whole group of people who are still dealing with the fallout from that. So when I'll just say the word slavery, meaning what? Meaning the robbery of your freedom, meaning the imposition, the heteronomy of someone else's will on your life, your freedom, your choice, right? That's the essence of the violation. Well, what if, and we cover this deeply, guys, in the 1776 Now, but just briefly, what if the imposition is no longer the British? What if it's no longer the slaveholders? What if it's not even our current elected officials? What if each one of us dared to ask, am I participating in my own oppression? Am I somehow unwittingly subservient to a robbery of my freedom, my mind, my ability to not think in an enslaved way, to not think in a constricted, restricted, limited, and divisive way? What if, in other words, so you may not be somebody at all who has any feelings of racism or sexism or homophobia or any of these things that are easy to point to, but what we're trying to get is, and what I'm just understanding in the last few years of my life, I'm starting to step back and go, oh my gosh, I've been objectifying. And not just others, myself. Because I wanted to? No, of course not. I don't want to objectify anybody. I don't want to feel objectified any more than I want to objectify. But what if there's something going on with our consciousness that we inherited, we don't know, that we're all complicit in? We're all many, many different faces, as many faces as there are people to the same dysfunction. This sort of deep level of objectification. And that's when you start to go, oh, whoa, am I free? And if I am not free from that, and I don't know how to not objectify with my lens, with my mind, with my thinking, with even my best intentions and heart to be a champion for equality and love and fairness and harmony, could I still be somehow unwittingly subservient to this objectifying code? And that is really what we have to look at with the minute and a half that we have left. We're obviously going to have to continue this in a third thing, but that's what I'd have to say to that. What you just brought up.
That's beautiful, and we're about to take a break again, and this is beautiful now. I love this conversation. It's just so rich, and of course it's rich. It's everything. It's a whole journey of human beings. So the American USA experiment, right, in terms of the physicality and rather to go to the mentality, the mental processing. It's not just a physical, it's a mental processing culture. That's where we become persons and demos, we the people. And you can have the United States. It's not a geographic united. It's not that we have physical states, right? It's mental states. Right, the mental state. And so it's not a physical, the journey, the passageway that you beautifully massage for us in those moments is that what's the rite of passage to going from a physical, bound, caged place to free-range humans? It's a mental rite of passage. And it's across all the planet, all our great scriptures.
Yes,
all
it's
our
a
great
mental rite
enlightenment. That's right. And all the great teachers in the Jesus version, unless you die, you can't be born. again, that's going to the promised land, to the Christ land, right? The Quakers were seeking in the founding and their contributions in Philadelphia here, where I sit, to help contribute to the opening up of the land of the free in the founding of the Declaration of Independence. What is that independence of and from? And we saw, as you say, it's not just the monarchy and the British. That was huge. You are to remove the presence of an external heteronymous force imposed upon us. But what if, as you say, we're still bound when we don't have the external, oppression or colonized condition? Can we be internally colonized? How do we overcome that? And that is a human condition across the planet. It's in all of our nations and all of our great teachers. Yoga is seeking to emancipate the mind. Buddha is stop the suffering, emancipate the mind. Surrender to Allah, and all the way through to Rumi is to free the mind and put first. Yahweh is first, right? Logos is first. That is the journey to firstness, to being first people, primary persons. So what, the deep questions you opened up, and we're opening up here, and we've done already in 1776 now. Do we understand the high calling to be a person? We're not automatically a person. To be a first person is to put first, and to become the first version of ourselves. And to do that, we have to become officers of the Logos, officers of the source. Because the source is the law, the moral law, the law of being, the law of reason, the law of love, the law of compassion. And that's the land of compassion. And that's the city on the hill of brotherly, sisterly love, right? So it's got beyond geography to mental processing. How are we doing that? Do we have the technology of the mind and mental processing to cross into freedom together as a people?
That's a great segue for the next round. So please join us, guys, as we go deeper into this theme of this mental upgrade, initiation to free beings, free people. Please come back for our next episode. Thank you for listening, guys.